She and her late husband Larry together built an amazing business empire. She is the owner of one of the 200 biggest privately held businesses in the United States. She's responsible for 11,000 employees. She's a billionaire, but of course it wasn't always that way. In her book, Courage to Be You, Inspiring Lessons from an Unexpected Journey, she tells her very personal story. She grew up in an extremely modest setting in a loving family in the Marmalade district of Salt Lake City. She says, coming up in a poor family, I learned an awful lot about living life that I would never have learned otherwise. Things like how to create something out of nothing. Her faith plays the central role in her life. One of her favorite sayings is, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Being a Christian means loving people, pure and simple. Sincere love is always the answer. Although I don't think I was in her target group, being an old, non-member male, but I love this. There is a lot of great stuff in there. And I love the part about, do you have any regrets? No. Would you do it the same way again? No. She's a courageous individual, and she started being courageous early in life. After first meeting Larry in the 7th grade, they had some classes together. They were both athletic and competitive. One day after school in the 9th grade, she spotted Larry walking towards her alone. She walked right up to him and said, "Kiss me, Larry." And the rest is history. I also learned from her book, her husband, Kim, who's up here in front, before they were married, he had his home burned down. Twice. So she's now in charge of smoke alarms. She is, of course, also famous for her philanthropy. Gail is passionate about Utah communities. She's involved with several initiatives, boards, and organizations with an emphasis on healthcare, education, and homelessness. It is for these efforts we wish to recognize her. Now, Gail, you may think you have plenty of awards, but we disagree. We think you need one more. We want you to know how grateful we are to you and the vital role you play in making Utah a better place for all of us. Please welcome Gail Miller.
That's very nice. Thank you. I will treasure that. I think I'm inclined to give you a little history. I know this is a broad group, and some are from Utah, some are not. I was born and raised in Salt Lake City and lived here until I got married, until I had 2 children. After I got married, when we moved to Colorado, we lived about 6 blocks north of here, where I grew up, in an old pioneer home built in the late 1800s. I did grow up in a rather poor home. A lot of people would say that we were in the poverty group, but nobody felt that way in my neighborhood because we were all in the same boat. When I was in high school, I got a job at the telephone company, and it was really important to me to have some money of my own to do some things with that I had not been able to do because of the humble circumstances in which I grew up. So the first thing I bought was a bedroom set. I had slept on a couch or with a sibling or on an old army cot, many times not having my own place to sleep. So that was really important for me, and it served me well for a long, long time, even into my marriage. After my husband and I got married and had 2 children, we moved to Colorado because he had not found a job in Utah that he thought met his requirements, but he did like to play softball, and there was a team in Colorado that wanted him to come and play ball for them. So they said, we'll get you some job interviews, please come and play for our team. We went over to Colorado, he got a job. We stayed there for 8.5 years. We had an opportunity to work for a man who had a dealership he was just putting together, a Toyota store. Larry was the last piece in his puzzle, and he became his parts manager. He did such a good job that they promoted him to general manager and then eventually to operations manager over 5 stores. One day his boss came to him and said, Larry, you know, I have 8 sons, but I only have 5 stores. So I need to have you go back to the Toyota store, take some of my boys, and teach them the car business. Larry saw the writing on the wall and knew that his career there was going to be cut short. We happened to come to Utah for a vacation shortly after that and met with a fellow he went to lunch with an old friend who owned a Toyota store here. And that day he said to his friend, Hugh, when are you going to sell me your store? He had asked him that question a lot of times before and always had the answer, why would I do that? That's my livelihood. I would never sell my store. However, that day he said, how about today? That was early April in 1979. He came home from lunch and he said, what would you say if I told you I spend $1 million today? I said, I didn't know we had $1 million. Well, that was the beginning of a long and storied career. We began with 1 dealership. Today we own 80 companies. We own the Utah Jazz, the arena that they play in. We have theaters. We built a racetrack and then gave that up because it was not a financially viable enterprise, but was really going to be a plaything for Larry to drive his Cobras on. Set out to spend $7 million, ended up spending $107, so it never penciled. But we've done a lot of things and enjoyed a lot of success and some heartache. Nothing ever goes exactly the way you think it will, and we did not set out to create an empire. We were very fortunate to be able to remain humble and understand where our blessings came from, and that it wasn't us doing it. We were being guided. At least we felt like we were being guided by someone who knew better for us what we should be doing. Today, I am running the company because 10 years ago, Larry passed away from complications of diabetes. We were partners in our company from the very beginning, but when he passed away, I had to make a decision. He knew he was ill, but he didn't know he was going to die when he put our son in charge of the company about a year before he passed away. That was in July of 2008. In February of 2009, he passed away, and I had never worked in the company. I had been a stay-at-home mom for 44 years because I also raised a grandson. But the day he passed away, we held a press conference, and I was inspired to say, as long as we have anything to do with this company, we will continue the legacy that we have begun. And I could have said, I don't want to do that. I'm 64 years old at the time. I've had enough. I'll sell it and reap the rewards of our efforts. But I knew that we had created something very special. We were learning to give back. We had created a lot of jobs. We had helped support families. We actually do business in 45 states. We have dealerships in 8 western states now, and we have a broad base of employees. It was very important for us not to disrupt what we were doing and to be able to continue the legacy. It has now been 10 years. I have learned a lot. I do not run the company, but I have created a platform for us to be able to move into the future by creating a board of directors and being able to work on transition and succession in the family and prepare future generations to be able to take on the responsibilities of doing what we do today and growing and building and making it even better. People think that I'm inspiring because I've taken on the job of doing what I do. Have you ever had someone say to you, "You're such an inspiration," or "You inspire me"? How did it make you feel? And how did you answer the question? When people say that to me, I'm always a little bit embarrassed because I don't feel that that's what I'm doing. I'm just living my life, and it's an awkward question. So I just say thank you. And I wonder, but I don't ask, what do I inspire you to do? That's the key of inspiration. We can't just be inspired. We have to do something with it. My husband, Kim, and I had a conversation about whether or not it's possible to purposely be an inspiration, or if it just happens because of the way we live our life. We compared it to being a role model. Now, I don't believe that any of us can set out to be a role model because someone has to follow you, and if no one decides that you're their role model, you're not a role model no matter what you do. If you set out to be an inspiration, you have to have people be inspired. So they're not exactly the same, but I think it's important to understand that people choose to be inspired. They choose to see what you're doing. Generally, people follow those who have some trait or characteristic that they desire to incorporate for themselves and choose to have for themselves. So we determined that the same must hold true for a role model as it does for someone who's inspirational. But I don't think there's anything wrong with being an inspiration if someone wants to be inspired by you. The definition of inspiration is the action or power of moving the intellect or emotions, a person, place, experience, etc., that makes someone want to do or create something. Being an inspiration means being the force or influence that inspires someone to do something or to feel a certain way. Like I said before, I didn't set out to be an inspiration, but people often tell me that I inspire them, and that does make me happy. I enjoy being a force for good. And I'm grateful if my story and my experiences allow me to influence people or encourage them or to embrace their differences and to make choices that help them to live happier lives. And that's one of the reasons why I put myself out there when I wrote my book and why I accept speaking engagements. I believe that where much is given, much is required. However, I don't want other people to think that what I have is unobtainable. Instead, I want people to feel inspired that they can achieve what I have, that they can create the mindset that if she can do it, I can do it. That's really the reason I wrote the book. Whatever it is, you can do it. If I can set an example through my positive choices, my success, my survival, happiness, confidence, or whatever, then I don't think that's a bad thing. If I can inspire someone to have a happier, more active, more productive life, isn't that a good thing? I believe the inspiration that we all seek comes from those around us who live remarkable lives. and they give all who are watching a window into the greatness of their efforts. Those people come in all sizes, all shapes, all ages, and all walks of life, just like in this room. I'm inspired by the mother, maybe my own or maybe someone else's, who raises her children with values and gratitude, and whose children become good citizens and in turn protect the freedoms and revere our history, and then pass those values on to their children. I'm inspired by school teachers who give tirelessly of their time, their talents, their energy, their knowledge, and even their money so our children can succeed. I'm inspired by painters and musicians and writers who make the world beautiful with their words that enrich our lives and calm our souls. I'm inspired by public servants who put their lives on the line every day so that we can be safe and secure and protected wherever we go. I'm inspired by religious leaders who give us hope and comfort and direction. I'm inspired by philanthropists who share their wealth to make the lives of others better and then encourage them to pay it forward. I'm inspired by homeless providers who work constantly throughout the day and many times throughout the night without thought of reward except to feel the satisfaction of helping the poor and the needy. Other things on my list include families who take in foster children who might otherwise be abandoned or feel alone or unwanted. I'm inspired by our founding fathers who created a nation where we can practice freedom and free enterprise. I'm inspired by the beauty of this world, the flowers, the trees, the sunshine, the rain, the snow, and even the clouds as they change shapes. I'm inspired by the hope of a better tomorrow. I could go on, and I'm sure you could too. I did not set out to be an inspiration to anyone. What I wanted to do is live the best life I could. I'm far from perfect, but I have a set of values that I adhere to, and maybe that's why I inspire others. They're simple, but they work for me. I lean on a higher power. I know I cannot get through this life without that. I try to love unconditionally. I am no better than anyone else. I try to treat all people with kindness and dignity. I greet the day with a song, try to make others happy, and serve gladly. I believe we can all be an inspiration during our lives. Your four-way test is a good one. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Those are good values. And to that I would add, be not afraid. Don't be afraid to stand up for what is right, even if you might be ridiculed. Chances are someone needs what you have to offer. Chances are you will inspire someone else to step out of the shadows and share their goodness and their talents with others. Chances are no one else will do the very thing that you are inspired to do. I have lived an incredible life. It hasn't always been that way, but as I have matured and embraced my opportunities, I have tried to do the best I could to magnify my stewardship, serve others, and appreciate life, all of it. I am who I am today because of the life I've lived. I am the sum total of all of my experiences, and I would not trade one of them. I am grateful for the life I've lived. Melody Beatty said it best when she said, "Gratitude unlocks the fullness of life. It turns what we have into enough and more. It turns denial into acceptance, chaos to order, confusion to clarity. It can turn a meal into a feast, a house into a home, and a stranger into a friend." It's my desire that we can all understand that we are an inspiration to someone by the way we live, and that we can always be an inspiration for good. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight, and thank you for all that you do to make the world a better place.